Hello, my name is Mr. Cadella, and today I'm going to show you how to paint a watercolor color wheel. And you'll see that I have a finished example here. I only use three colors, the primary colors, yellow, red, and blue. So I'm going to go ahead and get a blank sheet here. I have a paper towel, my paintbrush, watercolor paint. There's three colors that I just mentioned. And this is actually part of the case for the watercolor set. I just took this part out and I can use this as a palette, and of course I have my water over to the side here. I want to make sure that I have clean water, and you might have to change out your water on a regular basis to keep it nice and clean. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of water. I'm going to put it into each one of these color wells here. Now here's a big tip for you. Don't fill these up with water. You just want a little bit of water to get started with, and you want to make sure you use your paintbrush on a regular basis. Kind of dry out that paintbrush. You don't want a ton of water in your paintbrush. So when you clean it out, go ahead and touch the side of your bucket there. That gets out some of the water, and then you can dry off some of the rest of it inside your paper towel there. First thing I'm going to do is I want to start with the lightest color first, and that is of course yellow. So I don't want to use a lot of water. One of the biggest mistakes I see people make with watercolor is they use way too much water many times, and everything looks very washed out, looks very light. So I'm going to grab some yellow here. I'm going to paint in this yellow one. Now as I'm doing this, I'm going to talk about the technique that I'm using here. This is called wet on dry. So obviously just wet paint on dry paper here. This paper is just copy paper, so it's not nice watercolor paper, so it will wrinkle, it'll turn a little gray as you're doing this, and that's perfectly fine. It'll turn back to the regular color after it's completely dry. So I'm going to go ahead and clean off my paintbrush here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to orange. I'm going to make some orange. Of course you make orange with yellow and red, but it's not equal parts. You want to use more yellow than you do red. So I'm going to go ahead and grab just a little bit more yellow here, and then I'm going to grab just a touch of red. I'm going to mix that in. You see how just a little bit of red changes all that yellow into a beautiful, beautiful orange. So I have my orange here, and that's how you would paint your color wheel as far as the secondary colors are concerned. I'm not going to go through all this with the audio. I will finish this painting, but I'll fast forward through this in the editing. Now to mix the yellow-orange, you can kind of see also that the paper is starting to turn a little gray, and that's fine. It'll turn a nice vibrant orange once it's all completely finished there. Now you don't want it too washed out. I will show you a little tip too. If it gets a little washed out, maybe like that orange is a little too light, I'm going to go ahead and grab some more yellow here. Grab just a little bit more red. I'm just going to go right back over it. Makes it a little bit more vibrant, a little bit more saturated with that orange color. Now, when I'm done with this, I'm going to clean up my paintbrush because I don't want to take a dirty paintbrush and put it into the yellow. I'm going to grab some yellow. I'm going to make my yellow-orange. This is called an intermediate color, or sometimes it's referred to as a tertiary color. So obviously, yellow-orange goes right between yellow and orange, and just like I mentioned when mixing the yellow with the red, you want to have more yellow. You also want to have a little bit more yellow than just the orange as well. The trick is with this is to make sure you get a color that is in between yellow and orange, hence the name yellow-orange obviously. But sometimes it's a little bit more difficult to do. Sometimes you'll end up making something that looks a little bit more just like yellow or a little bit more just like orange. So you have to kind of tweak it. You may have to go back over the top with a little bit more yellow or a little bit more orange, just depending on what you need to do to fix that. Now I'll go around and finish all this color wheel, and then I'm going to show you how to make gray and brown. Okay, now you see that I have my color wheel completed here. I just have to do the brown and the gray in the middle. You probably noticed that when I got to the green, that I used a lot more yellow than I did blue, just like we did with orange. Now, sometimes you have to go back and kind of tweak something. Maybe you have to go back and fix your blue-green by putting a wash over that to make it a little bit more green or blue, so forth and so on. But now I'm going to go ahead and mix brown. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of this green that I have right up here. I'm going to add some red to it. I'm actually mixing opposites on the color wheel. So you'll see red and green opposite from each other. And this will be generally about equal parts. You might have to tweak it just a little bit there. Here we go. Got a good brown color here. If your brown turns out too much more like red, then add a little bit more green, and vice versa. There we go, just like that. Now, clean out my paintbrush. To mix the gray, I'm going to mix another pair of opposites, and that's going to be yellow and violet. I'll go ahead and grab a bunch of yellow here. This will be just about equal parts here. Now I can see that this gray is a little too brown, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back and add a little bit more violet, get a little bit more blue here, just a touch more red, mix that in, should have a nice gray, and if it's a little too blue, you just do the opposite. You grab just a touch of this yellow, mix that in, there we go. Get a nice gray here. Essentially, brown and gray are a mixture of a lot of different colors. I can even take just a little bit of this orange and mix it in there. If it gets a little too blue, there we go. And that's how you complete your watercolor color wheel using only 3 colors.